Welcome everyone to another Microsoft Unboxed pod. This is episode 20. Nope, I take that back. We are 39, almost to the big 4-0, I believe, right?
Yep, we are 39, buddy.
Yeah, we continue to age, and so do our topics. We're going to be talking about a latte, but let me again, I guess, introduce myself as Kareem Anderson, and my host today is
David Allen. Hope everybody's doing well. For those in the U.S. market, we are 1 week away from the biggest food meal of the year, Thanksgiving. I know I've got a lot to be thankful for this year. I got a lot to be thankful for what we've done here with the website and my buddy Kareem over there. So let's have a little fun and tech our way into Turkey.
Yeah, I think we're actually coming up on our year anniversary for this website and this podcast.
Yes,
right?
we are. Yes, we are. We've been doing this 1 year, and I have enjoyed, my friend, doing every bit of it with you, and I look forward to what we do next year.
Yeah, those of you go check out our site. Maybe we'll open up our forums, our chats on Blue Sky and other social media for suggestions for changes that you guys might want to see in the website design or topics covered during the podcast, any of that kind of stuff. A year in, we're always open for to improve and to make changes. Enough of that. Let's get you guys on with the news because that's what you're here for. We're going to be talking about quite a bit. We'll be talking about Microsoft introducing the first cloud PC for Windows 365. So we have a mini computer that Microsoft makes as a first-party thing. There's a catch, though. It's not like a, what do they call it, the Mac Minis or anything like that. It looks like one.
It does.
We're also going to be talking about Google possibly moving forward with Android over ChromeOS. I think there might be a little capitulation there about ChromeOS and its history and its future. We'll get into the details of that. We can now stream our own games on XOS Cloud, but we have some questions about what that could practically look like. That sounds great, but there's always a monkey's paw situation when it comes to Microsoft. We're also talking about Microsoft wanting to avoid the issue with AI training, which I think a lot of AI companies are already running into 2 years in, and we're already hitting a possible ceiling. But there are some workarounds, and Microsoft is amongst the companies that are coming up with a solution. Microsoft also wants companies to use AI and Copilot a little bit more, and they made that whole pitch all this week during Microsoft Ignite. We got some stories coming out of that that we're going to be talking about. We'll also be talking about, I don't know if you guys remember, Microsoft's security pledge, essentially, they made earlier this year. Well, they have some updates on what they expect to do with that pledge and how they improve it going into 2025. Lastly, we're talking about Google might officially have to sell Chrome and Android in order to make amends for its illegal monopoly that they were found guilty of, I believe, 2 months ago. So we're going to get into all those details. I've talked for quite a bit. I'm going to let David take it from here on out.
Sounds good, my friend. I'm going to jump into our first story here about, it was a little fun watching this week about the cloud PC for Windows 365 that Microsoft tossed at us this week. A lot of people thought, and I did at first, when I first read the first headline that morning, I thought, great. We're getting a Windows version of the Mac Mini because you know what? The Mac Mini is not a bad machine. So I thought, great. This is what we're going to get. Nope, not quite. As usual, Microsoft pulls back the reins and says, haha, gotcha. It is a Mac Mini looking PC, but it is just for the Windows 365 cloud PC. Yeah, kind of get a wonk in there for us older folks out there. Think about back in the day when you had the dumb terminals, when you sat down at your desk and all you had was your terminal, and your terminal logged you into some server in some other room or some other town or some other country. Basically, that's kind of what we have here with these cloud PCs. They are $349.99. They come with 4 USB ports, Ethernet, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi. So you're getting all your connectivity there, right there on the device. It can be controlled by your company administrators, by Windows endpoint, the Windows device policies, so they can control what you get access to, what you don't with your cloud PC. Um, you can also get updates done automatically. They take care of themselves. There are no local storage on these devices, so you can't even fake them if you wanted to kind of reverse engineer one to say, okay, I'm going to have a cheap, small, inexpensive Windows PC. Can't do that. They do not have local storage on them, so this kind of takes care of these security concerns that some companies may have and attackers being able to compromise the devices. But I don't think this is a bad thing. Number one, Microsoft needs to sell Windows 365. They need to sell cloud type services to continue to make that cloud money, because we know that's where Microsoft makes the lion's share of their income right now. But for me, I could see this trickling down in the future to the consumer, where Microsoft gets the consumer to buy something like this and give Microsoft a monthly fee to stream your Windows experience, just for those non-techies not to have to worry about the security, the updates, etc. So I could see where maybe years down the line this becomes a consumer-based product, but for now, for business, I think it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I don't have any real issues with this, and and maybe this does become a consumer product. I do ask the question though: how many of us, when we lose internet, basically close our laptop? Because I feel like this is the equivalent. Like, yes, you can do content creation locally. You could write, you could edit. You can do a lot of things on your PC without the internet. But I feel like for a large portion of people who use their PCs daily, the internet is crucial, and without it, these devices become paperweights, just like this thing sort of is. This is to a larger extreme, but I think the internet is crucial for anything. So for people who are like, "Oh, this thing can only work with the internet," I feel like that talking point's kind of been rebuffed by the fact that everything we use, or most things we use on our PC, Mac or Android or Linux or whatever, is internet based. So to your point of maybe this being something that Microsoft offers in the future, maybe they offer it at the same price with some storage and call it a day. We're like, hey, here's your new Windows PC. Yes, it has to connect to the internet, but so does most of your other things. Good luck.
Now, the problem here would be, think back what happened earlier this year with all of the
Oh yeah, definitely.
Azure issues. I know, if you're looking at this from a company standpoint, sure, your fiber is out, you have a connectivity issue, the company is down. But can you imagine a workforce? Okay, you got, several hundred of these deployed in a company, maybe more. Oh, Windows Cloud is having a problem today, and nobody gets any productivity done, and no bills get sent, no invoices
Oh
get
yeah,
paid. That's a problem.
big time. And that's one that Microsoft is about to walk into. I'm sure we'll have a story about that next year. With that being said, let's move on to our next topic, shall we? And that is about Google finally admitting that ChromeOS sucks. That's a bit of hyperbole on my part, but I've been waiting to say that because this headline really kind of it feels like it encapsulates that. Now, the actual report is that Google may be about to move Chrome OS to Android. And what that means is basically turning Android or replacing Chrome OS with Android with a more improved desktop version. And again, there's a site I believe was it Android Authority is claiming that Google will migrate the entire Chrome OS code base to Android, in part because multiple efforts to better compete with the iPad have failed. This will require multi-year effort, so this isn't something that will happen next year or happen at the end of this year or happen even the year after. But Android wants to compete with the iPad, more specifically than they apparently do with Windows. And I remember all the headlines during COVID about how Chrome OS is taking over the Windows market by storm, how it's the much lighter, better replaced version. And I'm not saying any of those stories aren't valid now, but it seems like uh, Google has seen some sort of future where it needs to be in competition with the iPad Pro, perhaps, and with Android having all of the mobile features already in place. Maybe Google just feels like it's easier to port some of that desktop functionality on top of that, versus the other way around, which we've seen them kind of do, where they've taken the OS and added the App Store and a few of the mobile layers from Android into the system, and they kind of work side by side versus cohesively in one mesh. So, what are your thoughts on like Google chasing after the iPad versus going after the Windows, Mac, Linux desktop crowd?
I would rather see them combine the two and stick with some sort of hybrid approach, kind of like the iPad does and doesn't. It can be argued that maybe, like I think of the Lenovo Duets, for example. There was the Duet 5, I believe, and then there was another one that was the kind of like the Surface tablet type device for Chrome OS. But the problem with those devices is this: I've got one from Lenovo here to my right, and I've got one in the other room that I bought several years ago to my left. And it's a fractured relationship, meaning that not all Android apps run on Chrome OS, and most Chrome OS apps don't run on Android. So, number one, if they're going to combine the two, fantastic. Number two, if they combine the two and do it correctly, they could take a shot at both crowds. They could take a shot at the mobile crowd with the iPads. They could also take a shot at the desktop crowd, because Chrome OS is not a terrible operating system in some ways. Android is not a terrible operating system. But the two apart is no good at all, because I see it myself. For example, some of the creators out there will fully identify with this. There are camera systems that are multi-camera things, like you can edit on your iPad or edit on your tablet. But guess what? It says on the box, cannot run on Chrome OS, Android required. So you end up having to go possibly buy a second device just to run your camera setup, or you don't buy it at all, or Apple benefits because, well, Apple's going to make it easy. You just go buy the iPad and that's going to make it easy. Well, then for Apple, that leads to, once you've got that iPad, they're going to put their hooks in. Let me see if we can get them to get the phone. Let me see if we can get them to get the laptop. Then Android and Chrome OS lose out altogether. So I think this is a good thing. I would like to see them combine the two. I would like to see them go after both markets. Competition is good.
Yeah, no, I think competition is good. I also find this a bit troubling, and again, not because I am a Chrome OS hater, admittedly so, but because this feels listless. After, what is it, almost 13 years now with Chrome OS, I feel like they are backtracking and going to Android, which has never been really good on tablets. That is its thing, and Google hasn't supported its own tablet in order to learn how to make a better tablet OS. That is the other thing that I think gets overlooked in the story, is that the reason why the iPad is able to evolve its OS to become a laptop kind of competitive replacement is because they refined the tablet experience so well over the last 15 years or however long the iPads have been out, that they can start adding stuff without people saying, all right, well, the tablet experience is missing this. Now they're just saying the tablet experience is so good, we can start to add these things. Google is chasing after that experience without having done any of the work over the past 10 years to make Android tablet experience is good. This is why the Pixel Fold is still kind of a questionable purchase. Why the Pixel tablet, which I believe is being discontinued already after 1 year, is not a win. They haven't found a win on the laptop side either. They haven't figured out a situation in a laptop set of features or hardware that they can point to and be like, this is how we build the OS around it. You know, there's the Dell XPS 13 that is a flagship. There's the ThinkPad, X1 Carbon, but most ThinkPads in general, how you can build Windows around that. There is the Surface device you can point to. HP has a Spectre. Like, each person has their quantifiable flagship device that they build all their feature sets around. Apple has the MacBook, obviously. They have the iPad. Google doesn't have, like, there's no Google laptop that they can be like, all right, this is how ChromeOS is supposed to work specifically. And and I think they use that to their benefit, saying, hey, ChromeOS can work on anything. But I think when it comes to marketing, and then as a result, gather data and telemetry from the users, they don't have that. They're all over the place. And I feel like this is another all over the place effort. You're going to choose to use Android, which again isn't good for tablets, isn't good for desktop. And then take ChromeOS, which was at least good somewhat for desktop, and say, no, you're the sub operating system. We're just going to pull features from you and make this one that's only succeeded on phones our main focus. Feels, again, one of those situations where it's like, all right, well, we saw the squirrel, we're going to chase after it. And when the squirrel goes with the tree, we're going to be left going like, all right, well, let's go back to splitting the two operating systems. They weren't meant to be together.
Now I'm gonna add one thing to this. One thing that would concern me is the education sector, because Google has this big thing, this whole setup for using Chromebooks in education. They've got a whole back end. They got the the classroom setups online, and everything's great. So if they wanted to do something, I would be a supporter of interoperability, where ChromeOS apps can run on phones if needed, and Android apps can run on ChromeOS without any funny business, without having to make it work, without having to reverse engineer things. They just work because, like you said, and that was something you brought it up, I have a problem with Google discontinuing the Pixel tablet. That tells me something. That tells me, are they done? They've been done before. Are they done with the bigger screen computing initiative? And it makes, I'm not an Apple fan, but it makes me think, would you rather go buy an Apple device? Because what is Google going to do? That's basically the only large device that's going to leave them with is the Pixel Fold. So my question is, and we have no answer to this, I wish we did, what's Google doing? Does Google care about the large screen experience anymore?
As part of this report, that there is supposed to be a Pixel laptop coming to showcase this. Now, I want to move on, but we've beaten this to death. Google had a laptop for ChromeOS. They have laptops currently for ChromeOS. I don't understand where they got the initiative, like this Android effort to put the Android code base as the underlying thing for this. Where they got that from based on their sales of ChromeOS and laptops. You think it'd be the other way around. Just continue integrating the Android features. But I feel like, again, this is a shortcut effort to be like, yeah, we're going to have Android and it's already on 2, 3, 400, 4 billion devices. Let's just add some of the ChromeOS stuff on it and call it a day, versus let's keep working and refining Android features into ChromeOS that makes sense to make this operating system even better. But we're going to move on because that took a long time and start talking about streaming your own Xbox xCloud games. Streaming your own games on the Xbox Cloud. I said that backwards.
Yeah, that I typed that backwards a couple of times when I was doing the write up because I'm like, you're streaming your own games. Well, aren't they your own? And then I had to think about that for a minute. Basically,
When in doubt, blame Microsoft for it.
basically what this means, folks, is you can stream game. Let me simplify this right out of the gate. You can stream games that are not already available to be streamed in the Xbox cloud. So, for example,
you can stream a selection of games.
Yep, that's where I was going. It is a selection of games, and it is a small selection right now as Microsoft tries to get this off the ground, and we'll talk about it here. Let's see. There's no increases to your Game Pass subscription for now, but for right now, in 28 countries, if you own a list that is roughly 50 games, I can call out a few here: PGA Tour 2K 2023, NBA 2K 2025. We've got Hogwarts Legacy. We've got Harry Potter. We've got the Final Fantasies. We've got the Farming Simulator. We have Cyberpunk 2077 is a good one. I know a lot of people like the WWE 2K 2024. So, what this means, and there's a few gotchas to it. You can sign into your Xbox account, xbox.com, and you can stream from the website. You can stream on your favorite devices. You can stream on your tablet. You can stream on your PC from the website. It is not integrated yet into the Xbox app. Microsoft says that's coming. It is not integrated yet into Xbox itself, your Xbox operating system. Microsoft says that is coming. For now, you're going to go to xbox.com/play in a supported browser, being Edge, Chrome, or Safari. So interesting that they're supporting Safari for this. And from there, you can find your way to your favorite title. If it's one of these 50, Microsoft says they will be adding to this list in 2025. Now, let's remember, they've got to get the licensing on board. They've got to get the developers on board to support this. It's not going to be something that Microsoft says, okay, tomorrow we're adding these 50 titles, and people that want to know why are they just starting with 50, that's why. They've got to get the licensing. They've got to get the financials right. They've got to make sure that everybody's making money. So, good start for Microsoft. My one question is, does Microsoft start adding more games outside of Xbox? Do they care to?
We have nothing to say at this moment in time. We will get back to you when we can with further information. Thank you. This conference is
exactly.
No, you're right. This is. I think you were thinking 4 steps ahead, and you're probably right in the room with the marketing guys and the number crunchers who have already outlaid a plan for the next 10 years of how to slowly breadcrumb us into streaming lockdown, where we're only allowed to stream, and the level of streaming is all dependent upon how much we pay. I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I'm going to live in a little bit of ignorance is bliss for the time being, for at least for 2025, where playing these games are fun. For those of you who are wondering, these aren't just games that are on the Xbox servers. The way it works is if you own these games through PC, maybe you purchase them on a phone, maybe you have them through the Meta Quest or something like that. When you go on and link them to your Microsoft account, it will detect that you own the game and that you don't need to buy it again. So don't think that these games you're going to go on and just hop on and play any of the ones that are the 50 that are listed. You need to, one, go to the website, find out which 50 are listed. And you have to also already purchase these games, link your Microsoft account to them so that they can then be streamed here. Because otherwise you're going to go on and see like, oh, NBA 2K25, I want to play that. And you can say, hey, you want to pay $20 to play? And you're like, I thought this was part of the streaming. No, this is the Nextcloud. You have to have already purchased that. And then it will say, okay, Kareem, your account's linked to this. Go ahead and start streaming, play as long as you want. And presumably, it'll also link all of your achievements and things like that to this as well. So hopefully, you won't have to start over or any of that, which goes to David's point about uh, why these 50. These are probably 50 that have online support currently in place from the developers as well. So that, again, your achievements, all of your saved games, all that kind of stuff is all brought over, and it's just a very accessible experience off the bat. Versus like, all right, well, you own Warhammer, now you can stream it, but you have to start all over because the servers weren't there for that in place. I don't have much more to add to that unless you want to wrap it up, or we can move on to the next one.
No, I just think it's going to be interesting to see where Microsoft takes this, number one. Number two, how quickly do they get games added? And number three, do they get the AAA titles in there that people really want? That's always been the down. There were many years there where GE Force was just kind of like a meh. You would look at GE Force now and go, where's that AAA title? Where's the Battlefields? Where's the Call of Duties? And just in the last couple of years, they have, started being able to pull in those, AAA titles. And it's like you said, they've wanted those AAA titles the whole time. It's all about licensing and money. So how quickly can Microsoft get these deals done to get a list of AAAs in there that everybody wants?
I think to your point, I think for a while, I think for the next few years, we're going to just see old games that have a service window that is still viable for developers to support, because they can make a bit more money through this. This is a way to reinvigorate the play of those games to get those developers a little bit more money if they go in and start buying DLCs from a game they haven't played in 5 or 6 years. I think when it comes to new AAA games, they're going to require that to be part of the Game Pass kind of thing, because the money that's up front has already been spent, and you wait for that support cycle to start trying to squeeze even more out of that rock. I think we're going to keep seeing older games, probably games that are 5+ years old, show up on this list. Maybe in batches of 25 at a time going forward.
No, we don't have MechAssault yet. I know everybody still wants that 20 years later.
I don't even think the people who made that even have a studio anymore to support that game if you put it online somewhere. But there might be some guy who can play a video recording of it and let you watch it on YouTube. That's about as far as you're going to get online with that game.
Unfortunately.
We got our next story, which is Microsoft wanting to avoid a future AI roadblocks with synthetic data. If that sounded like a bunch of words that didn't make any sense, I'm going to try and explain it as best I can. We are now, year 2.5? If you're being generous, this is year 5 of the AI cycle, starting from concept and development to us getting our hands on actual products. Probably even longer than that. I think AI has been around for a while, but as far as consumers playing around with it, roughly 2 years. And we have hit the ceiling, ladies and gentlemen. There is no more AI. AI is done. It is over because we've given AI the internet. It ingested all of the internet, and there's no more new internet being built at a fast enough time or space for this thing to train and become better. It is basically learned it's basically graduated high school or college, or I guess at this point gotten its doctorate, and you're asking it, hey, do you want to learn more? And it's like, I can't, I'm at my limit. So what companies are starting to do now is create synthetic data to help train and optimize these large language models going forward. And Microsoft has come up with something called the Agent Instruct Framework. It is their version of synthetic data that it will train Copilot and its other small language models and other machine learning and large language models against. So we are now at a point where the machines are training the machines. And what are your thoughts? Will that make a better product for a human?
No. And I'm going to. I've always been a believer. I do not believe in synthetic benchmarks. Let me go that far, because I am a believer that If it's synthetic data, a human has control of that synthetic data. They can make that data, they can make that data any way they want it to be. Now, for anybody that's listening or watching going, David, no, they have to make the data what it is. No, they don't. That's the problem. Synthetic data is just that, synthetic data. I understand why it's needed. But I think when you're teaching AI something, the natural data that occurs is the right answer. It's kind of like if you were to say, grass is green. Very simplistic example here, folks. We all know grass is green. But when somebody says, synthetic data says that grass is brown, there's a problem there. I feel like when you're throwing in another human element of synthetic data or a type of data that the human can manipulate, it starts out well. There's a part there in the middle where it gets a little wishy-washy. And then by the end, we got part of what we want, but not completely. So I understand why it's needed, because we don't be stepping on toes, pulling in AI data. Go back and think about what happened with Reddit a few months ago when they were blocking. I know they blocked Microsoft, and I think they blocked a few others from being able to crawl their website and pull in this data. I think you set a bad precedence by adding in synthetic data, because if you make it okay for AI, guess what? Somebody's going to want to make it okay for search engines and other type of data that we search. I get it, don't like it.
Yeah, a couple details from the story is that over the past few months, Microsoft's agent instruction framework has generated 25 million pair data sets based on synthetic data. So they've gotten some work out of this. And those results help power a Mistral 7 billion parameter based model. But it's not only agent instruction framework's ability to recreate data based on synthetic data, but it was able to do so while boasting a 40% performance boost in human-centric benchmarking tool, AGIEV, and 54% on a benchmark data set tool, GSM8K. Now, the real issue, aside from like the training capacity being met, is that when you train a model on a model, first off, when you train a model on human data sets, stuff gathered by humans, there's the unfortunate incidents where you have hallucinations. The data that was presented by a human to the AI ingested and then came up with a hallucination based on the way it pre-generated the information. Now, if you introduce synthetic data, which is data that hasn't been presented or produced by a human, you have the capacity for that hallucination to multiply. And if the data is training the data, that's just more instances of that hallucination being an issue. And Microsoft realizes that. And I think, not just Microsoft, Copilot's also, not Copilot, but OpenAI is running into a situation of its own with its own model. I think it's Orion is what they call it. And NVIDIA has its own as well. I think it's called a Nemotron -434OB. Not a great name, but they're all aware of this. And I wrote in my piece that this is, I don't know, for those of you who are a bit old, there's a movie called Multiplicity where Michael Keaton clones himself because he is a very busy man and he needs to be in all places at all times. So he makes a clone. Then his clone makes a clone because his clone needed help. Then that clone makes a clone because that clone needed help. And by the time you get down to, I believe, the fourth clone's got some learning impairments, to say it nicely, because it's a clone of a clone of a clone of a clone. There's deterioration going on there. And we're wondering, will these AI models run into that sort of situation? Microsoft achieved a feat in training data by using a process called reflection, which offers a kind of checks and balance to prevent model collapse or degenerative outcomes that lead to degraded responses from your model. So we have to keep an eye on this, but companies are aware of this. And again, like I said, we're in year two of consumers being able to play around with this. We're not, this isn't a long 10-year process, and now we're running into, oh, now the AI is just spitting out gibberish because it's ingested all of the internet, and now it's trying to figure out new ways to present the same old data to us. This is year two, and it's already people are already worrying about this. So I expect to hear this conversation about synthetic data across the board over the next year or so, about how companies will figure out a way to keep improving their large language models in order to keep selling investors on the idea that AI is the future. With that being said, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is Microsoft wanting companies to use Copilot, ironically, with this looming ceiling above it. Well, what are your thoughts?
Well,
I know you wrote about this, and this comes from
you
Ignite,
know,
right?
yeah, I wrote about this one. This one comes from McKnight, and this one did not surprise me. And I think, to your story just a second ago, I think there's a little bit of backstory to this. I think investors are, that they were getting antsy. Now I think we're getting from antsy to squirming in the seat a little bit, because they have given this money. That money has been spent. They're not seeing the kickback from this money. They're realizing possibly that consumers themselves haven't broke the habit of going to Google and Bing.com to do their searching. They're not pulling up these AI models and using them. So if they're not pulling up and using them, they're not paying for them. So Microsoft says, okay, we see businesses are using this. We see businesses are using our Copilot subscription. We see them using it integrated in the team. So guess what? Now we want businesses to buy these Copilot PCs. Here's why. They're more efficient. They can run most of your software these days. They've got those powerful NPUs sitting in them that can do 40 trillion operations per second. They've got great battery life. So now Microsoft is saying your IT department can control them. And guess what? There's even a mention of good old recall. That recall will come later, and there will be a corporate policy that says your IT department can determine whether you get access to recall or not. Microsoft is aiming that this is a Copilot PC is one of the most secure ways to work inside the workforce. I do not disagree with that last statement, but how do I want to say this? You're buying a MacBook with a Copilot button. That's the way I want to put it. Now, that's off the cuff there, because that's what I thought when I first read this story and got ready to write it up for you guys. You're selling me what I should have had 5 years ago. You're selling me on the efficiency of the device. You're selling me on the battery life of the device. Basically, what you're telling me is Windows is finally where Apple M1 was 4 years ago. We just have a Copilot button, because we have yet to see very many Copilot experiences on device. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any businesses yet with a Copilot experience on a device. I've seen plenty of people typing into ChatGPT. I've seen plenty of people typing into Copilot in the business world. I've not seen a reason other than camera backgrounds and camera blurs and stuff like that we've had for the last couple of years. I've not seen a reason other than the hardware improvements for a business to buy a Copilot PC. So what Microsoft is trying to do here, I think, is get you to buy the PC in hopes that later you give them that $30 a month for a business seat of Copilot. But we don't have the Copilot experiences yet. I think that's what's lacking. I'm talking to you right now on a Copilot PC. I've got Copilot on my taskbar. I've got the Copilot key. They both work. They work well. To me, it's a very efficient, very powerful PC. But Microsoft's way of selling this is through the software of Copilot. We don't have the experiences yet to convince a business that their employees need hundreds of these, thousands of these. We've got to get the Copilot experience.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Microsoft is kind of putting the cart before the horse in this situation. Again, this is a joint effort, kind of like the Ultrabook. At least with the Ultrabook, there was a visual inference on what was different, why people wanted this. We went from the big, thick beige laptops to these Ultrabooks, which were thinner, could fit in backpacks, and could be portable. This was an effort by Intel, and the hardware was supposed to be, again, thought for portability, for travel. And that's how we got businesses to be like, hey, you're a marketing exec, you are communications director, you are someone who needs to move around and move out and about. Here's your new Ultrabook, because you need that thing. It's hard to do with the Copilot Plus PCs, because the only real change, to your point, is that there's a physical button, but there's no way to really market that to, hey, you need to have that button. You need to get this PC with that button, because you're going to be pressing that button 500 times a day. They haven't gotten there as far as the necessity for Copilot yet. And admins can't, it's going to be hard for admins to explain, we need to get rid of all of our old ThinkPads, all of our old Intel-based ThinkPads with these new Copilot Plus PCs, because when you go to your boss and say, what's the difference? Or when he asks what's the difference, you're going to say AI. Well, can't they use AI on their ThinkBook? Well, technically, yes, they can. They have a Copilot in the taskbar that works just as well as the Copilot when you push the button. So why am I going to renegotiate a new contract with Lenovo to get a whole new, fleet of these things when the old ones are working just fine and I could save money for the next 3 years? This is going to be a long effort. I don't think Microsoft is expecting these things to fly off the shelves anytime soon. I think as the laptop market steadies itself and laptops go back into a buying cycle of maybe 5 to 7 years first thing, the new ones will just naturally replace the old ones, as long as PC makers keep making these things, keep embedding the TOPSs in here, and making software and advancements in the internal hardware to support these things, and just quietly keep doing that. People will quietly buy this. I don't think there's going to be a rush to be like, oh, I got the new Copilot Plus PC as a consumer. You're never going to hear that. You're just going to be like, I bought the latest Elite or XPS, and this thing goes from 9 hours of battery to 15 hours of battery. I don't know what they did in there. And that's the marketing. That's the successful marketing, saying, I don't know what they did in there, but it goes from 9 hours to 15 hours, and everything works just like it did before, but longer. Because that means that they didn't run into the translation layer. They didn't run into app incompatibility. All they know is that this thing is better than the last one. So,
because I hate to tell you, excuse me, everybody's, I want to say this, but I won't say this the right way. Everybody's got to catch Apple in that power efficiency ratio. Bottom line, I hate to say it, Apple's there.
No, you're right.
They've done it. They've done it 4 generations in a row. I have used a couple of Apple M1 series products. They're not bad. They're good. The hardware's there. You've got to convince corporate that you need, like you said, that you need that hardware, number one, that you need that efficiency. I'm sorry, but I just don't see the secretary getting her new Copilot laptop and it's going to stay plugged into the outlet so long that the power adapter gets dusty. It's a pick and choose deal. And businesses have got to see their 20-year-old software that a lot of businesses still use. That they've got to see the software that they need run on these devices first, and then evaluate what do they want, how many do they want. And, one thing comes to mind, and I'll stop it here. Where is the Copilot desktop? Where is the desktop that businesses can purchase that runs on ARM to make the entire company have the
Cloud PC
same
for Windows
thing.
365.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You know,
I don't know. I
you
think Qualcomm is supposed to come out with a new version of that mini PC. I think that you're talking about next year. While they shelved the one for this year, I think they are working on other versions. And to your point, I think what do you say? Geekom has as an ARM version of their mini PC. We just need to start seeing more of them come from Lenovo and more of them come from Dell, because again, those are the ones that companies trust and buy from. They may not buy directly from Microsoft for these things, but as long as Dell and HP and Lenovo are producing them, which I think they are, just smaller quantities, I think they'll be fine. Again, this is just a headline that they got from Ignite. I believe that we're going to, again, keep hearing the drum roll if they're successful in this. If they give up on it, I'm not a predictor of the future, but I think this will be the replacement for the Ultrabook, where it just becomes the new brand, Copilot PCs versus Ultrabooks. Last few stories we got. We have Microsoft security and resilience efforts get a turbocharge in 2025, and this is again coming from information dug out of Ignite. Microsoft security resilience efforts will be enhanced significantly next year. Microsoft's got a bunch of efforts. The company is introduced its resiliency initiative following the global outage in July, but again, they had made a security pledge, I believe, earlier than that. I want to say it's like February, March of this year, that they're seeing too many headlines that involve security and Microsoft paired together, and so the company is doubling down, tripling down on making every product that they have more secure, and even internally, their own divisions, their own businesses, the way they operate and communicate with one another. Security is supposed to be at the forefront. With that being said, at least for Ignite, here are some of the headline or some of the things that they're looking to kind of focus on going into 2025. They want to make sure I get this right. Strengthen reliability and learnings from incidences that they saw this year, enabling more apps and users to run without admin privileges, and stronger controls for what apps and drivers are allowed to run. And again, I believe these are all kind of direct responses to CrowdStrike, which was a huge thing. Their efforts basically involved looking to leverage Microsoft's virus initiative, MVI, paired with the adoption of safe deployment practices. When they combine those two efforts, Microsoft wants to make sure that apps and admin privileges become a little more granular, and that apps that are created or that are used across Windows adhere properly to deployment rings, and that they're also monitored to minimize potential negative side effects. So again, if you knew how CrowdStrike worked, it was that it was a third-party security software, piece of software that a lot of businesses used. They pushed out an update. The update wasn't checked. The update went through. Because of the way Microsoft Windows works, the admin privileges allowed the app to kind of update itself in the background and basically crashed all Windows PCs that had or that were leveraging it. With that being said, Microsoft's going to start using, or at least Weston, I believe, which is the name of who's the guy who wrote this piece. Make sure I get it right. David Weston, who is Microsoft's VP of Enterprise and Operating System Security, has mentioned that they announced this time at Ignite quick machine recovery. Like I said, it's kind of a direct response to CrowdStrike. It's based on the description details. Quick machine recovery will allow IT admins to apply targeted fixes, service the Windows updates on PCs, even if they're unable to boot, which is, again, another issue that happened with CrowdStrike, is that it got into a booting loop that admins couldn't remote fix, which they had to basically make a CD and then go in and manually fix this, which delayed a lot of recovery for that. Part of the issue with CrowdStrike was, again, that security firms couldn't reboot remotely. So this way, they'll have a new process to do that, a new way to do it. And again, that's quick machine recovery. Another feature is antivirus solutions, hardening antivirus solutions that allow them to run in user mode to help troubleshoot crashes or mistakes outside of the kernel mode. Weston mentioned that these antivirus solutions won't be made available, unfortunately, for testing until 2025. I believe July 2025. Again, in a kind of side mention, Weston also said that Microsoft is looking to boost efforts to support modern programming languages like Rust and replace those, at least the dependency on C++ ones, because those are highly exploitive, older languages that a lot of hackers kind of know. So they're looking to move towards more modern ones that haven't been exploited as often. Some of the other things that were called out during this part of Ignite was personal data encryption for known folders, which would be, I think, is kind of new in Windows 11 enterprise capabilities through Windows Hello authentication. Hot patches in Windows, which is being introduced for Windows 11 Enterprise 24H2 and Windows 365. The feature allows businesses to apply critical security updates without requiring a system restart, shortening your security update time and adoption. There's also work on zero trust DNS. Network destinations are often defined by domain names, making enforcement challenging. Zero trust DNS restricts Windows devices to approve domains, blocking outbound IPv4 and IPv6 traffic unless resolved by a protected DNS. There's also config refresh. I believe that's actually available now. I don't know if that was made available this month or older, which frequently requests features as configuration drift can occur when a user or app makes changes to the PC system registry. Config refresh helps enforce MDM-defined security policies by automatically returning PC settings to the preferred configurations. And again, those are just some of the things that Microsoft's looking to kind of push starting in 2024. I believe January is going to be the first rollout of some of these features all the way through to the summer. We'll see how these work, how these are adopted by admins, and whether or not they can prevent the next version of CrowdStrike. What are your thoughts on that before we move on to the next one, the last topic?
I think this is what everybody has to do, not just Microsoft. I see it on the daily. I'm going, attacks are becoming more sophisticated. They're becoming harder to detect. We're seeing name brands attacked on a regular basis. We're seeing data leaks on a regular basis. And I think this is a never-ending process. And Microsoft is at the forefront of it because ultimately businesses run Microsoft or Apple. As we've said, there really isn't a third party. Chrome doesn't find it. ChromeOS and Google don't find themselves on the desktop very much in a business sense. So I applaud Microsoft for what we're doing here. I think I'm going to be the devil's advocate and say, Microsoft, let's do more. And let's continue to do more. And I don't want to hear about this just every year at Ignite. I would prefer to hear about this almost on a quarterly basis because that's how quickly these attacks are ramping up, becoming more sophisticated, and it kind of ties most of our podcast together here. Microsoft, if you want to do the cloud PCs, if you want me to go buy the Copilot PCs, and you want me to put these in my workforce, you've got to keep me secure, or at least offer me the services that I pay for as a business owner to help me be secure and let me choose whether to pay for them or do my own thing or do a hybrid of both. But Microsoft, you continue to push cloud. You're giving me the devices now. You're giving me the tools. CrowdStrike was a big lesson for the entire world. You've got to stay on top of this. And I hate to beat that point, to death, guys. I really do. I beat it, and I beat it hard because I see it. I see it daily. None of this works none of what we're doing or what we have done over the past 10 years works unless we stay secure.
Yeah. And with that being said, we're going to move on to our last topic, which is Google might have to sell Chrome and Android soon. For those of you who haven't been keeping up with the news, the DOJ, Department of Justice in the U.S., has found that Google holds an illegal monopoly when it comes to search on the desktop. And as a result, they are in the remedies phase of how can we fix this? How can we break up this monopoly and make competition more fair? And we had some suggestions right after the initial ruling from, I believe, I'm sure I get this right, the DC District Court Judge, what's his name? Judge Amit Mehta, after his ruling. And the remedies range from super extreme, some would say, especially for Google, to minor changes in the way that business practices are held. Well, I believe earlier this week, got a little more clarity on what the Department of Justice would like the courts to enforce going forward. Again, these are all suggestions. There will be another point in time where Google and the Department of Justice will argue in front of a judge on what seems fair, and the judge will pick from that, I believe, in order to kind of come to a final conclusion. But as of right now, one of the things that were floated amongst many was that Google would have to sell Chrome. That was the first one that they said. And part of the reason, based on what the DOJ has included as a way for Google to enforce illegal things, is that it would basically separate it off as its own separate business from Google. So it'd be more like the way that Alphabet kind of holds stock over Waymo. It's not built into Google, but it uses a lot of Google stuff, but it's its own business. That's kind of what happened to Chrome. The other thing that was another possibility that they're leaving open in case Google tries to figure out a way not to do this is selling off Android, the mobile operating system, as a bargaining chip to keep Google from trying to find loopholes and applying any other remedies. And again, those are the two major ones. Those are the ones you saw headlines for this week. Other smaller ones that would actually probably have just as big of an effect, if not make or have Google prefer to sell off in order not to implement these, is the DOJ wants the courts to enforce a prohibition on third-party exclusivity agreements, the ones that were held between Google and Apple and Samsung in order to be the default search on a lot of these platforms, both mobile and desktop. Another remedy proposed by the DOJ included limiting the degree to which Google can offer preferential treatment of its search engines on platforms it owns and operates, such as Google, Gemini, and Google Shopping. So, Amazon, Yelp, and the rest of those would, hold the same sort of weight when it comes to how they appear in the Google Shopping and whatnot. And for video platforms, I know YouTube seems to be the only one we talk about, but there's, Vimeo and what is the other one? Daily something or other. I forget. There's another Daily Motion.
Yeah, Daily Motion. That's one of them. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Things like that would start to appear in the search engine results versus just all Google based, all YouTube based ones. Another remedy that they were talking about, which is Google would have to share access to the index search engine that it's already accumulated over the years with other search engines. So Bing would actually have a shot finally, Yandex and DuckDuckGo and the other ones. And they would offer this at a nominal cost and in an ongoing basis for a 10-year period. And the next remedy is for a 10-year period in which the company has to syndicate its results, US-based search results, data, and ranking signals for everybody. So they basically be offering all of the treasure trove to Google search in order to make amends for their illegal monopoly. So the DOJ was saying hey, you could sell Chrome or you could do some of these other things. And I think some of these other things hurt it more than selling Chrome, than spinning Chrome off as its own business. If you have to give up all the search data you've collected to give you the advantage in search, especially as we move into an AI world where search results are now being augmented by the preferred AI interface, you need every piece of advantage you have, and you can't start leveling the playing field from a business perspective. Perhaps the last and most consequential request from the DOJ regarding remedies for Google has to do with the company's future in AI, as I was just mentioning. where they propose all websites have an opt-out selection versus being opted in by Google from the AI overviews without any retaliatory penalization and regular searches for UI. So if you opt out your website from being crawled for AI information. It doesn't hurt you when it comes to just regular search in general. Like you won't get devalued as a result of that. Where Google can say, hey, if you don't give us access to your website, not only do you not show up in our AI overviews for your information, we don't service your links in the AI overview, and we don't put you at the top of our Google regular search. Going forward, that's what the DOJ is hoping to kind of implement. Again, these are all moonshot ideas, and this is how you move the overage window. You ask for a lot to negotiate and get something in the middle. We'll see what they end up doing. But as expected, Google came out. I believe their Alphabet's chief legal officer, Kent Walker, had a response, and he says as part of its lawsuit over how we distribute search, the U.S. Department of Justice tonight filed a staggering proposal that seeks dramatic changes to Google services. The DOJ had a chance to propose remedies related to the issues in the case, search distribution agreements with Apple, Mozilla, smartphone OEMs, and wireless carriers. Instead, DOJ chose to push a radical interventionist agenda that would harm Americans and America's global technology leadership. DOJ's wildly overbroad proposal goes miles beyond the court's decisions. It would break a range of Google products, even beyond search, that people love and find helpful in their everyday lives. I will end my assessment of this by saying that this was a case that was brought up by the Trump administration. It looks like given back to them when the incoming administration is official, I believe on January 20th. We'll see how they handle some of these remedies, if they scratch some of these off the bat right out of the gate, or if they want to penalize Google even further. But either way, Google is going to be in for a weird, bumpy ride for the next 4 years as they negotiate and appeal these. What are your thoughts?
Bumpy ride, as you said, yes. Changing the way consumers operate, possibly. I think as a consumer, when you hear the words, might have to sell Chrome, you panic a little bit. Because we're a Microsoft website. Let's be fair. Most people use Google Chrome, and most people use the integration with Google Chrome between PCs and between their devices. Mm-hmm. Most people have their logins and financial information for making purchases easy. Mm-hmm. You using the Google Wallet, everything is nicely integrated, and that's exactly what the DOJ is after. To some degree, it is to break some of this up. So when you hear that, you panic. I mean, just like I asked you off mic, we know that as tech enthusiasts and tech journalists that this is not going to be over tomorrow. This is not going to be over in 2025, likely not over in 2026 and 2027 either. But it makes a consumer think, what's going to happen? We don't know what's going to happen. But we do know that, as my mother and my grandmother used to say, Google has gotten too big for its britches. And, it's time to break them apart. It is. Now, does Google agree to something to keep from other things being brought up, other things being manipulated? Do they look at the list of selections and go, okay, this is the lesser of two evils. Can we just take this and the DOJ go on their way? I think that's a possibility, because reality is people don't think of the internet. We used to. We think of Google. Mm-hmm. And there is this relation that Google is the internet. Mm-hmm. And it's going to shake a lot of people up. It's, if you start playing with those search results, I know what you do for a living. You start playing with search results, people are going to start screaming loudly because they have paid that money to companies that write the ads, put them in the search engines, make them get their placement, and they're giving the ad company and Google a large sum of money in most cases to get in those reputable positions.
Mm-hmm.
So Google starts being forced to play with those. You're really going to get people screaming. So I think Google may say, look, okay, we'll spin Chrome off into something else. We'll spin Android off into something else. Just make sure it connects back to our services, please, so we don't infuriate everybody. And we carry on. I don't see a place where Google goes, maybe they let other people in the search results a little better, but I don't see a whole lot of search results manipulation happening to try to get people to agree, because you'll tick the world off very quickly that way, I think. I mean, that's the blunt way to put it, because your company, you guys do stuff like that. What are you going to do when the phone starts ringing? Hey, Kareem, I paid your company for, position 3 in house cleaning, and now I'm position 10. Well, because of the DOJ ruling, you're going to have to be happy with position 10. But I paid you for position 3, so I want some money back. So you see how that trickles down? I see a place where Google picks some lesser evils and maybe hopes the DOJ will move on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And we'll keep an eye on this. We'll keep reporting it as we get more information. Again, they have until, I believe, March to kind of sort on some of these before they meet the judge, I believe, in April the following month, to kind of really nail down exactly what can and cannot be done in order to break up Google. And I believe they're also under DOJ scrutiny for stuff with mobile as well, them and Apple. So, there are going to be several of these stories about how to make the internet more fair and kind of change the direction it's going versus what we kind of currently have. But that being said, where can people continue to have these conversations in different areas with you?
Please do. I am on Blue Sky, as I mentioned last week, and I like Blue Sky. I like Blue Sky a lot, like their algorithm over there. I like the way that works. David PHA 1978 on Blue Sky, or I'm over on Threads at David PHA 1978, and I'm also, for now, still on Twitter X at David PHA 1978, but I don't go over there as much since Blue Sky kind of hit the public debut a few weeks ago. Like I said, I really like the Blue Sky environment right now. I really like the way once you kind of show them that you're interested in tech and gaming, comics, etc., they kind of aggregate your feed to that. You're not getting the uninteresting things in the middle as much. So, and not as many ads either. So, Blue Sky, David PJ 1978 is the preferred location.
Yeah, I am over there as well at Happy Hulk at Blue Sky. You can follow me there. I like to talk about comics a lot, and the Niners occasionally if they win. We can also talk about tech too as well. I'm also on Threads at Kareem Anderson. I am no longer at X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Moved on since then. You can also hit me up on Instagram as well. I like to share some funny videos and memes or whatnot. But you can also find us on our website. You can go there. You can. We also publish our stories to LinkedIn if you're more professional. You can catch those there as well. We are also on TikTok and the other Facebook, I believe. We're on there as well. And if you can't find us in any of those, maybe you shouldn't be trying to look for us. It seems like we're everywhere we need to be when you need us and nowhere where you don't. For that,
sounds like a cell phone commercial in the making.
Yeah. And that being said, we want you guys to all enjoy your weekend. Go out and touch some grass, enjoy life, be thankful for the things that you can be, and work for the things that you want to change. We will see you guys again next week with more information. Again, this is a slow season. We kind of predicted this from Microsoft, so we will bring out whatever news we can when it's available. Take care.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving as well.
Same.